From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang in review. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet on Monday witnessed the signing of 3 landmark agreements aimed at strengthening security, education, and connectivity between the Philippines and Cambodia. The agreements, signed in Phnom Penh during President Marcos's 3-day state visit, cover enhanced police cooperation against transnational crime, exchanges in higher education, and expanded air connectivity between the two countries. The first is an amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, between the Philippine National Police and the Cambodian National Police, which now specifies deeper cooperation on human trafficking, arms trafficking, and cybercrime with an automatic renewal clause. The second is an MOU on higher education cooperation between the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, and Cambodia's Ministry of Education, Youth, and Sport. This provides for exchanges of officials and training programs, as well as joint initiatives in science, technology, and innovation. The third is a new air services agreement allowing designated airlines of both countries to enter into code-sharing alliances, operate charter flights, and exercise Fifth Freedom rights, enabling carriers to transport passengers and cargo between the Philippines and Cambodia with a stop in a third country. The deals complement the leaders' pledge to intensify cooperation against human trafficking, cybercrime, illicit drugs, and other cross-border threats. They also agreed to pursue stronger linkages in trade, agriculture, renewable energy, digital economy, and people-to-people exchanges. President Marcos's visit is the first state visit by a Philippine president to Cambodia in nearly 9 years. It comes as Manila prepares to assume the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, chairmanship in 2026 and campaign for a non-permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council.
Cambodia is a country with which the Philippines shares centuries of civilizational and cultural bonds. I'm deeply honored to carry with me the goodwill and friendship of the Filipino nation on this state visit. Our meeting today involved a wide-ranging discussion on how our countries can effectively improve in meaningful and impactful ways the lives of our peoples. We recognize that the growth and resilience of our economies depends on opening new avenues of cooperation, expanding opportunities in trade, agriculture, renewable energy, and the digital economy. By broadening these linkages, we give our peoples more opportunities. We also ensure that our region is less vulnerable to the effects of external uncertainties. In this endeavor, I wish to emphasize that the Philippines stands as a steadfast partner in opening new avenues for collaboration and to strengthen the ties in areas that matter most to Filipinos and Cambodians alike. We also acknowledge the pressing challenges that cut across borders: human trafficking, cybercrime, illicit drugs, and other transnational threats. These dangers affect the safety of our citizens and the stability of our societies. It is in this spirit that we agreed to strengthen collaboration among our law enforcement and security institutions so that our collective response will be swift, coordinated, and effective. We also emphasized the importance of strengthening ties between our peoples with the hope of facilitating more seamless and frequent travel between our two countries.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. rallied Filipino and Cambodian business leaders to take the lead in driving growth, innovation, and inclusive prosperity, stressing that the private sector is at the forefront of shaping the future of both nations. Speaking at the Philippines-Cambodia CEO B2B Networking Roundtable in Phnom Penh, President Marcos said trade between the two countries, which reached $105.69 million in 2024, reflects rising trust. The president also urged business leaders to go further by tapping untapped sectors such as healthcare, education, logistics, agro-processing, and digital services. President Marcos likewise assured investors that Manila is committed to creating a conducive environment for doing business, while tasking the private sector to generate jobs, introduce technology, and deliver lasting impact on the ground. The chief executive's Cambodia state visit has already produced agreements on police cooperation, higher education, and air services, with President Marcos framing the outcomes as part of a strategic, forward-looking partnership that would also bolster the Philippines' preparations for its Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN chairmanship in 2026.
This progress affirms the effectiveness of our shared efforts in trade facilitation, policy alignment, and stronger private sector engagement. However, we cannot and should not rest on this momentum. There remains significant room to grow, untapped potential to explore, and opportunities that we must seize together. With continued collaboration, I am confident that our economic ties will expand further. The future of our relationship lies not only in traditional industries, but also in emerging high-impact sectors that will define the next phase of our development. We are especially focused on expanding cooperation in sectors such as consumer goods, education, healthcare, franchising, infrastructure, agro-processing, and logistics. These industries are critical drivers of both economic modernization and social development. They are fully aligned with our national development goals, and they also reflect global trends in innovation, in sustainability, and digital transformation. At the core of this economic vision is a firm belief that development must be rooted in partnership, not just between governments, but more critically between our private sectors, which possesses the capabilities to drive innovation, efficiency, and inclusive growth.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has vowed that the government's crackdown on anomalous flood control projects will not end until the big fish behind the schemes are held accountable. In his latest podcast episode aired Monday, the president said accountability will not spare anyone, even his political ties, rather political allies. President Marcos also said Congress may proceed with its own inquiries, but the executive will rely on an independent commission he is organizing. The chief executive assured that all organs of government would support the investigation. President Marcos earlier said he will announce in the coming days the members of the three-man independent commission that will look into the alleged anomalies in flood control projects. The body, President Marcos said, will be given all the necessary powers to get to the bottom of the issue.
Until we solve the problem. Yung dapat natin pipilahan ng kaso, may ebidensya tayo na matibay. Unang-una. Pangalawa, na kapag sila na out of action na, ay talagang magbabago. Dahil sila talaga nagpapatakbo. So, I suppose the description that sometimes we use, yung big fish talaga, yung talagang nagpapatakbo nitong sistema na ito. Yun. Kasi, pag hindi mo mabubuwag yung sistema yan, hanggat tinanggal mo yung mga player na yan. So, tatanggalin natin yung mga player na yon at kahit sino man sila, para maging maayos ang patakbo ng sistema. Wala talaga tayong magagawa eh. We have the truth has to come out. Kaya nagkaganto dahil pinabayaan eh. We look the other way, nagbulag-bulagan tayo, diba? Nagbibingi-bingihan tayo, wala tayong naririnig. Kaya nagtayo ng gaganto. Ba't natin babalik kayo? Ay, hindi, wala kaming alam dyan. Wala naman kami naririnig.
Meantime, President Marcos Jr. said the 2026 national budget will no longer carry new allocations for flood control projects, saying the 350 billion pesos in funds from 2025 remain unspent. The president said the Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, and Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, will resend to Congress the revised budget proposal for 2026. The chief executive assured that flood control projects would continue but with stricter scrutiny. President Marcos added that contractors must fix their defective projects at their cost before the government considers further engagement. The Philippine president also dismissed calls by some lawmakers to return to sender the proposed 2026 National Expenditure Program, saying only the DPWH budget would be revised.
Number one, we already are seeing na lahat ng flood control project na dapat nilalagay sa 2026 na budget, hindi na siguro kailangan. So there will be no budget for 2026 for flood control. Dahil meron naman 350 billion for 2025 na hindi pa nauubos talaga. So, tuloy-tuloy pa yung trabaho. Hindi naman ibig sabihin, titigil natin yung flood control project, mga flood control project. Ibig sabihin, titiyakin na ngayon natin na ang paggastos tama, ang pag-implement tama, maayos ang design, etc., etc. And then, how do we do this? Sinasabi ko nga, interesado ko na makipag-usap tayo sa mga kontraktor na tapusin nila. Ayusin nila. O di mag-usap kami after that. Pero before that, ayusin nila, buuhin nila. Up to specification. At their cost, wag naman sila don't expect the government to pay for it. Ayusin nila yung project nila.
Oo nga.
O di sige, mag-usap tayo after that.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s three-day state visit to Cambodia yielded 5 business agreements and 3 government-to-government deals aimed at strengthening economic and bilateral relations between Manila and Phnom Penh. In his arrival message upon returning to Manila on Tuesday, President Marcos reported his productive engagements with Cambodian leaders and top businesses, which centered on future collaborations and cooperation in key areas. President Marcos said discussions during his meeting with the business community have culminated in strategic partnerships marked by the signing of 5 business agreements focused on sectors such as aviation, logistics, and women-led micro, small, and medium enterprises. The chief executive said the business deals would pave the way for exploring market opportunities for Philippine exports of products and services, as well as for fostering institutional partnerships for the 2 nations' business associations.
I have returned from my state visit to Cambodia, where I had a constructive exchange with, amongst others, Acting Head of State and Senate President Hun Sen, on advancing our bilateral relations across key sectors and fora. I also met with Prime Minister Han Manet, and we underscored the mutual regard that we place on our close bilateral and multilateral cooperation. In our efforts to strengthen our respective economies and that of our region, we highlighted our collective interest to bolster intra-ASEAN trade through enhancing market access. We had a productive engagement with the top businesses in Cambodia, together with our official business delegation, where our discussions focused on our complementary strengths and how both sides can offer each other unique opportunities for growth and for market diversification. Our discussion resulted in strategic partnerships through the signing of 5 business agreements. They are in the sectors of mutual interest, such as aviation, logistics, women-led MSMEs, exploration of market opportunities for Philippine exports of products and services, and institutional partnerships for our business associations.
In 2024, total trade between the Philippines and Cambodia reached $105.69 million. Three key agreements were also signed between the Philippine and Cambodian governments, covering police cooperation, higher education, and air connectivity. President Marcos emphasized that the two nations seek a more responsive collaboration to address the evolving security challenges facing the region. The chief executive said Manila and Phnom Penh have also agreed to work extensively on the prevention of illegal recruitment and trafficking in persons.
As ASEAN remains one of the most economically dynamic regions of the world, and its middle class continues to strengthen, we have seen intense travel and exchanges amongst our people. We need to enable and strengthen the nodes of connectivity to support the further development of the ASEAN community. And while we open doors for tourism and cultural exchanges and reap the benefits of regional integration, we also recognized the emerging security threats in our region. In this regard, we affirmed our determination to fight criminal elements that misuse technology and exploit our peoples. To improve our cooperation in addressing transnational crimes, we agreed to update our bilateral agreement to make it more responsive to the evolving security issues facing our region. Likewise, we recognize the need to update our agreement in the field of migrant workers' welfare and employment to stress our common conviction to work extensively in the prevention of illegal recruitment and trafficking in persons. I also took the opportunity to express my appreciation for Cambodia's support for the Philippines' bid for a non-permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council and for the Philippines ASEAN chairship in 2026. Any visit, of course, would not be complete without honoring the valued contributions of our hardworking, talented, and dedicated Filipino community in Cambodia. And we had a very warm and friendly visit with them in Phnom Penh. I shared with them the current developments in the Philippines to uplift the quality of life for every Filipino.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Tuesday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said the 225 billion pesos in funds originally allotted for locally funded flood control projects in the proposed 2026 budget will instead be redirected to education, health, and other pressing needs. The president explained that the 2025 flood control budget of 350 billion pesos has been delayed by ongoing investigations, making the 2026 allocation unnecessary. Foreign-assisted flood projects worth around 50 billion pesos will continue. President Marcos said the realignment aims to maximize the use of savings and address urgent social needs.
Then we will spend it on other things. There was a budget of 350 billion for 2025. Because of all of these allegations, investigations that are occurring, na-delay lahat yan. So hindi matatapos yung 350 billion in 2025. So we will use the continuing appropriation for next year. And yung savings, it's going to be about 225 billion. It's actually, ang flood control for next year is about 275 billion. But some of that is foreign assisted. So yun, hindi gagalawin yun. Kasi foreign assisted project yun. Pero yung locally funded, kung tawagin, na project that amounts to about 225 billion, we will reappropriate it to education, to health, to other departments that are also always that are in need of this funding.
The Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, earlier reported that it has released almost all of the appropriated budget for this year, with only 285.3 billion pesos remaining to be dispersed to government agencies. The chief executive earlier directed the DBM and the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, to revise DPWH's proposed 2026 budget and ensure that no insertions or anomalous items were inserted.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Wednesday announced that more than 3.8 million pensioners will benefit from a historic multi-year increase in Social Security System or SSS pensions starting this September. During the ceremonial launch of the SSS Pension Reform Program held at the SSS main office in Quezon City, the President emphasized the government's commitment to protect and reward Filipino workers in their retirement years. This initiative marks the first time in the SSS's 68-year history that pension increases will be rolled out over multiple years. Under the reform, retirement and disability pensioners will receive a 10% increase annually, while death or survivorship pensioners will get a 5% yearly hike from 2025 to 2027. The increase, which covers retirees, dependents, and surviving beneficiaries, is expected to inject about 93 billion pesos into the economy over 3 years, helping pensioners afford basic needs such as food and medicine.
Kailangan natin gawin ito bilang pasasalamat sa ating mga kababayan na buong buhay na naglilingkod, nagtatrabaho para sa ating bansa. Simula nung unang araw ng Setyembre ng taong ito, itinaas na natin ang inyong buwanang pensyon. At taon-taon, ito'y tataas hanggang 2027 na walang dagdag na kontribusyon mula sa mga miyembro ng SSS. Kasama rito ang 10% pagtaas para sa mga retirement at disability pensioners at 5% pagtaas para sa survivorship pension. Tataas din ang pensyon para sa mga dependent. Sa kabuuan, mahigit 3,800,000 pensioner ang makikinabang dito sa programang ito. At sa loob ng 3 taon, halos 73 bilyong piso ang mailalabas para sa ating mga pensioner para makabili ng gamot, ng pagkain at iba pang mga pangangailangan nila.
The President said this is part of government efforts to ensure ginhawa sa bagong Pilipinas, or in English, comfort in the new Philippines, reflecting fair and timely social protection. The SSS has assured that the pension hike would not require any increase in member contributions, unlike the 1,000 peso across-the-board benefit granted in 2017, which led to subsequent hikes in contributions to maintain the fund's viability. The event also marked the declaration of National Pensioners Week, to be observed every second week of September.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday marked the 108th birth anniversary of his father and namesake, the late former President Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr., by urging Filipinos to live lives defined by service, sacrifice, and the defense of national dignity, which he described as the truest measure of honoring his father's memory. Speaking at a wreath-laying ceremony at Marcos Monument in Batac City, Ilocos Norte Province, the President said the late leader left behind a standard of leadership anchored on devotion to the nation and selflessness. The Chief Executive stressed that part of this legacy was an unwavering defense of Filipino dignity. President Marcos added that commemorating his father's life should not be confined to a ceremony but should be lived through daily concrete actions of service to others. President Marcos Jr. also recalled how Marcos Sr. often reminded him to make your own way rather than following a road well trodden, saying the pursuit of new paths was essential to progress. The commemoration began with a Thanksgiving Mass at the Immaculate Conception Parish, followed by the wreath-laying at the Marcos Monument. The President later distributed medical equipment to local governments, witnessed a culinary showcase of Ilocano vegetable dishes, and received a floral crown and traditional Ilocano serenade as part of the Marcos Day celebrations.
It is a legacy of service. It is a legacy of sacrifice. It is a legacy wherein he made it very clear to us that if you are going to be a good Ilocano, if you are going to be a good Filipino, then you must be willing to sacrifice everything, including your life, for the Filipino, for the Philippines. We must always remember that to provide good service, to be able to bring good service to our people, then that will need, that we must remember, we must be motivated by the lessons that he left with us. The lessons that we must exercise good judgment and always side with the national interest and the interest of Filipinos. In everything that we do, we must be motivated by a true commitment to service. And it must be driven by a true love of every single Filipino and a love for the Republic of the Philippines.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service is live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our post as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang in Review. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.